This is the video demonstration of the prototype made for the final year project module. The project is titled Purple Haze. I will start by showing first the UI that I created for the game. As can be seen in the scene, this is going to be the main menu where will appear when the player will start the game. There will be two options, single player mode or multiplayer mode. And I created buttons that can be reused in the game. So I can provide a user interface that is the same throughout the game. In the game here, there can be seen the UI created for the co-op multiplayer mode. I'll start with the login. Actually, when the player will press multiplayer, they will be presented with this canvas where they can enter their player name, login, and here is where the connectivity with the server will happen. Then the player will be presented with the cooperative gameplay mode options, which is to create a session, join a random session, and join one of the presented sessions, the existing sessions, or disconnect. Here can be seen the session details. So when a player will create a session, their name will appear here. They can start the game only if two players are connected to this session, or they can leave the session if the player will be the owner of the session. When they leave the session, the session ownership would be transferred to the other player connected, or if there is no other player connected, the session will be deleted. And here can be the list of the sessions when the player would want to join one of the existing sessions, and they can go back to the cooperative options using the back button. I chose this style for the game, and I plan to continue using this style to have the same buttons and the same feel throughout the game. Now I can do this. Oops. And I can present the inputs. So I used for the player movement the starter assets input. So I used the starter assets provided by Unity, scripts and everything else. And also for the network connectivity, I will use Photon, which is already integrated in the game. And Here can be seen that the app ID is already connected. So there is an app ID already connected, and later on in the code, there is gonna happen the networking capability. Next, I can demonstrate the player movement. So the player movement is happening with the keys WASD, spacebar for jumping. Now, for the first person, also I want to show the new input system. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Here are the input actions that I wanted to show as the move, look, and jump. They were already put in place by the starter assets. Okay, so here is the player movement. The camera won't go 360 up and down, only left and right. There are collisions, obviously the jump, and I use a recasting technique in order to look at objects. As you can see, there is a message saying I picked up PC table because that's the name of the object. Now we can see I picked up key blue, and with click left, I can pick up the key and I can move around with it. And pressing Q button, I can drop it. I can pick the rest of them. Here we go. So the player is able to interact with to have minimal interaction with the environment at this moment. Now I can show the code because there is a bit more in the code. So here is the pick and then the drop actions. So in the code, I created a keycard class that derives from an item because the key cards are not only the only items I will have in the game, and the key card has a key type that is specific to this object, but also it will have a boolean to know if it's collected, if it's selected, if it's been used, if it's been picked, or even if it can be picked, because there is going to be task segregation between the two players in the co-op mode. So some of the objects can be picked up by one player, but other objects can't be picked by that player. They can be picked by the other player. So like I'm trying to put in advance as many variables I can, and then assess later if I will need all of them in reality. The key card has the key type, which can be found as an enum in the in the namespace purple haze types, because I foresee that I will have multiple enums for different objects, different types of objects, so I can use these anywhere. Also, I created these because I will need to use them on the doors, because on the doors, on the door class, I will have a key type as well. And when the player will look at one door, I'll get the game object, and I will check what type, what key type it has. And then I'll check it against the selected key by the player to see if they are matching or not. And then when the state of the door changes, the door will open. It's not yet implemented in the game, but in the code, it's getting there. I also adapted the existing classes from the asset input, where it's like the look input, the jump input. I added the pick input and the drop input, and here as well. And then the first person controller, here is where I do the pick. I check if it's true. At the end, if this so I'm checking if the item I'm looking at, if the object I'm looking at is the type item. If it is, then I can pick it up. As of right now, this is how I distinct unpickable objects and pickable objects. And then drop. I have the variable picked object, which is a lot of red, which is declared here. And then, not there, sorry. Picked object and then pick position, which I have the position of that object. If it's null, then I constantly update the position and the rotation of the picked object so I can move around with it. Here is where I draw a ray for debugging the raycast. And here is the raycast happening, actually, where the debug log is happening. Maybe this can be commented. And then if the input pick, which is left click, is true, if it's clicked, and if the picked object is null, so that means that if I dropped the previous item picked, then I can pick another object. And then this function is happening. The drop function is called outside. I think this is all for the presentation so far. The future steps will be to test the code on the opening door. I think I also have, I created a level manager, which is empty yet, because here is gonna be, here I want to implement the conditions for the player to move through the game. So I know that they will receive certain rewards if they open the blue door, or they will receive an information sheet when they open the pink door. And yeah, I think that's it for now. And thank you for your patience and thank you for watching.